can see them usually.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Stan, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you? How have you been?
I'm all right, thank you. I feel like I am wiser for the last 2 weeks.
Getting a little bit
Thanks to
more
you.
nutrition information. It's always good.
Yeah. Stop learning and you start dying, they say. So you've got to keep
Exactly.
the mind fresh. So I'm glad to be the other side of this 2 weeks, and I think there are a lot of people who learned quite a lot about it all. How are you feeling after the 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was good. It was, I mean, obviously it was quite a big build up because you filmed for so long before. So, you know what's going on. But then when it actually starts, it's like, it's nice for, to get all that feedback and hear from everyone. So, yeah, I mean, I think it went well, got some good comments and feedback, but it's always nice to hear from everyone else who's going to join or who's done it some more. But yeah, I think it was really actually fun to enjoy because I think I love it so much. So it was actually really nice.
This is super. So whoever's here with us tonight, pop into the comments and say hello. Let us know how you guys are doing, how you are on the other side of your 2 weeks of your gut course with Sam.
Yes.
I hope you get. And start throwing in your questions as well. We'll catch them as we sort of go. So Vishal, hello to you. Dominique's here said, amazing course, Sam. Thank you.
I'm so glad. It's so nice to hear feedback, even if it's bad. It's good just to always get feedback so that next time it can be better.
Yeah, and I must say it was one of our, or it is our most how attended, signed up course that we've had. So the interest was amazing, and obviously gut health it's topical. It's interesting. I think what a lot of people will find out is that it's so much more important than we thought. But Sam, why has it been such a passion and interest for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's when I studied, it wasn't actually such a big topic back then. Well, I mean, it was, but we didn't actually dive that much deep into it that much. And I think just doing my own research, and obviously I'm quite like on social media, I read up lots about it. And then just I think it's quite like you can say like a hot topic at the moment or the past few years. And just realizing how much impact it actually has on our health. Like, I mean, my favorite one is always just like our hormones, like our serotonin and our immunity, that's mainly made by our gut. And, I never realized that. And it just shows how important it is. And I mean, those are just a few of the roles that it plays. So I think that's kind of where when I started to learn how important it is, it made me realize like how interested I am in it. And like, when you did this course, so many people actually signed up for it. And I think so many people are interested, and it's, some people struggle with their guts. And so I think that's why it was something that I was super interested in, just to learn more about and how we can improve it, because it's always nice to learn and also help others. So yeah, that's basically how I started. And then once I started reading more into it, it just got, more and more interesting. And I mean, there's so much research out there and it's still growing, and there's so much more to know as well. So I think that's, kind of how it all started.
Brilliant. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but Sam is a registered dietitian, obviously, so trained in all things medical nutritional therapy around food and nutrition and diets and how it all goes about. And as she mentioned, even in her training, there were things that kind of sort of started the educational process on, but it evolved so quickly. I mean, I must say it's we chatted to, I was mentioned to Sam before we went live here that we had a professor talk to us about probiotics and gut health a good few months ago. And in the build up to that, it's one of the fields where it's almost the most number of papers and research and interest is coming out of is in gut health, because everyone wants to understand this intricate link between that and all the things everybody now knows a little bit about over these 2 weeks. But I think we've only scratched the surface. There's so much interesting stuff to come.
And even like when I was doing the course, like you can go so deep into each of like the sessions that I did, but obviously we want to, keep it basic. But, like I said, there's so much more coming and so much more research being done. And it's actually so nice to see that so much research is going into it as well.
Exactly. Tell me, out of interest, did you ever struggle with gut health that piqued your interest in this?
Not really, actually. I mean, obviously, bloating. I think a lot of people always struggle with that, but I think that's always something. But I never really struggled too much. I was also thinking like maybe what if that caused my interest, but it wasn't something like that. So yeah, I've never really struggled. But I mean, I always was very interested in like plant health, and I mean, veganism was a huge thing as well at a point, and I think that's also where I kind of looked into that. And I think, yeah, I mean, just having a plant-based diet is always healthy for us. So I think that's just learning about that, and then it also just led to the next. And yeah,
exactly. So I suppose one of the benefits of the plant-based diet, and you spoke to it quite a bit in terms of variety and why it might be so good for us, is these types of things. So not just the vitamin and mineral profile and your phytonutrients, but how it actually impacts the other organ in your body, of the gut, and how functional it can all be. Yeah. I want to see who else is all here with us. Catherine Hermans is here. She's been very quiet. She wants to redo it. I thought I knew much about the gut, but have learned so much. It's one of the most interesting courses I've done. Brilliant.
So glad to hear that. It's so nice just to learn like about these things, because yeah, like you said, like sometimes we don't know anything about them, and then it plays such an important role in our health. And it's such an easy thing to control as well. And I know I spoke about that as well on the course, that it's something we can control, which is also quite nice.
True. That's actually a very interesting point. It's one of the few things that you've almost got entire control. I mean, things do take over and you might need to, reestablish what's going on. But essentially your gut health is impacted by what you yourself have put into your mouth, and then the environmental factors you're exposed to, and your stress and your all sorts of other things. But you can influence it. The other things that might be sort of more metabolic and all funny and finicky, that have so many processes, and not to say the gut doesn't, but you can directly influence it by your daily habits.
And it's amazing to see like when people start to change small things, that they do notice differences in it. So I think that's always nice as well, because you can, like you said, we can control it, or have a small part where we can. So I think that's also really nice as well. It's always good when we can control things slightly and have a good impact on our health.
I'd like to know from whoever's here with us, which of the modules stood out to you guys? Were there sort of specific topics that you thought, I didn't know that had a link to gut, or you learned something new? And I think we all go into a lot of things thinking we know something about it, particularly in the health space. But it'd be interesting to know what one thing stood out. Sam, which was the one that you kind of really enjoyed digging into and giving some info, and maybe just researching a bit more about as you went along?
So, I mean, I really enjoyed the first two. Like, they were the most basic ones, but it was the ones where we kind of like went into anatomy and drew things out. And I always like love showing people like by drawings. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. But one of my favorite also ones was also just diving into like the prebiotics and probiotics, because I mean, it's also such a hot topic and we always talk about it so much, and people always never know if they should take them or not take them, and they don't know the difference between prebiotics and probiotics. So I think that was always a nice topic as well to go into, just to explain like the differences and what they actually are, and how how they work, and if you should be taking them or not. So yeah, I think that for me was a really nice topic to jump into as well.
Lovely. There will be some people who might come across as we live and Jeff together who didn't do your course. Do you want to give us a quick definition difference between the two, pre and probiotics? Something we hear about all the time.
So your prebiotics are basically like food that feed your microbes that are in your gut. So it'll be certain foods that, so we have a whole bunch of different microbes in our gut, and they need different types of fibers to thrive and live. So you'll get these from prebiotic foods. So that's why we always say we need a variety, so that we get a whole bunch of different fibers to feed your microbes in your gut. And then your probiotic are your actual live bacteria and microbes. So when you take a probiotic, it's adding to that variety of microbes in your gut. Yeah, so that's kind of a brief difference. So your probiotic foods would be things like sauerkraut, your kombucha, your kimchi, those things that actually have live microbes living in them and fermenting. So that's a basic basic explanation.
And perfect, nailed it. So the one's still alive, and the other one's the food for them to live.
Exactly.
So I see Dominique said she loved the first two and the one on probiotics as well. Lauren loved the module about including more plants in her diet. How many of you guys got to your magic number 30 in a week?
Yeah, I wanted to ask and see
picking off the sheet you gave.
You got there. And actually, I got so many people messaging me for the list. So that was always nice because then I knew that people were actually going to implement it and do it. So yeah, tell us who actually, or who got close to 30 or over 30. Because it's actually, it always sounds like a huge number. But when you actually start writing it down, I think it sounds a lot more realistic and actually very durable. I see Nancy said 30.
Does Nancy reckon she got there? Well done, Nancy. A bit of background into why variety, perhaps?
Okay, so basically, like I was explaining, with your gut microbiome, you have a variety of different microbes in there, and we want that variety because because the different microbes have different play different roles, and that will give us different benefits. So when you have a variety of a plant, and it's a variety of plant-based foods, those varieties have different fibers which will feed our microbes. So kind of what we touched a bit about now on the prebiotics. So having a variety of plants will give us a variety of different fibers, because your millies have different fibers to your apples that have different fibers to your bread. So that's how you want to have a good variety. And also, obviously, it's going to add different vitamins and minerals, which is also just good for us as well.
Brilliant. There were a few people who were quite interested in the variety side. Natalie reaffirming what her dietitian told you. You've had another dietitian tell you that now as well. So we aren't a crazy breed. And if you break it down, sort of the 30 fruit and veg, when you tie in things like, even your onion and garlics, great prebiotics, good things that we get out of those. But people also don't think of those as they're like fruit and veg. Like you're adding them to your dishes, your stews, your bolognese, whatever. It still counts. The white stuff still counts.
Even chilies, like if you're adding that as well, it still counts. And when we did the course, I was always saying, like, sometimes we use like seeds, you get like the mixed seeds, and that has like a big variety in there as well. Or even if you're getting like lettuce, get a mixed bag of lettuce, because that's also going to have a different amount of variety in there. So, so those are little small things that can help add a bit more variety as well.
Brilliant. What's your variety yourself in a week look like? Do you practice what you preach?
100%, always. So when I obviously was doing the course, I was writing it down, and I don't hit 30 every time because I cook for myself and eat, so it's quite hard to always buy such a big variety of food. But I do always get at least between 26 and to 30. So I always do. Some weeks, sometimes not always perfect, but I definitely always have a big variety and enjoy having different things as well.
And I think that's what's important. You mentioned, so you're not always there. Gavin's got a comment here that he got stuck in the first module and work-life balance out of whack. And that's what happens. Not every week's going to be all right, or 2 weeks that you put aside to do this course, or 2 weeks that you put aside to focus on your variety and things get in the way. It's okay. As long as you've got it there, it's progress over perfection.
And I always say, like, even if you don't hit 30, it doesn't mean that your gut microbiome is bad. Like, it doesn't mean that you failed. Like, you just want to aim for 30 because it's a number that we kind of recommend. But if you're getting 23 or 26, doesn't mean that you failed or your gut bacteria is bad. It just means, that we want to aim for that 30. So as long as, I think, also being mindful of trying to hit that 30. But if you don't, it doesn't mean that you failed or, anything bad. It's always just good to be mindful of that.
It's the same as the 5 a day or the 7 a day. So nothing magic happens when you hit that number, but we need something to shoot for, because if you just said have more, no one would really know what that means. So you've got to put a target down.
A number to work towards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe you track your first week, and it's, normally I have 15 things. So geez, next week I'm going to try to get 18. You don't have to get 30 straight away, but you're just getting better.
No, exactly, for sure. And yeah, I think it's always just nice to have a number that you know that you should work towards. Otherwise, it's just like you said, just having more. Like, what does that mean?
Exactly. Let's scroll back. And Nancy says she's shared how to make sauerkraut with her mom, and she's looking forward to making it. How did the sauerkraut turn out?
Good. It was good. The only thing, and I actually wanted to tell everyone today, was just make sure that it's covered, the cabbage is covered in like water or fluid from that, because the top layer of mine wasn't covered, and then it didn't that top layer I had to take off. So just make sure that it is. I think you can even add some water in there, because otherwise it's yeah, it's exposed to the air, and then I think it oxidized a bit. But yeah, that definitely is. But yeah, I even had some sauerkraut today in my lunch, so it was a goodie. Me and my
I
dad
had
actually went through a phase of making kombucha for like a year, and it was just, he was so obsessed with it. So then I think that's also, we'd make it every week or every month, and it was also just so much fun as well to do it like with a family member. So Nancy, I hope your mom enjoys it, and you must let me know how it goes.
It's always nice to give something a go, something different. Even, if it just pushes you outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and it's something you've never tried before. During lockdown, everyone was on the sourdough train, another version of a fermented food. But it's just nice to have that sort of stuff at your disposal to kind of have a crack and see what it's all about.
No, for sure. I still haven't got on the sourdough train, and I still want to.
There we go. That's your next one. We're going to have a sourdough course brought to you by Stan.
I think I'm going to have to have a few months of practicing before.
Yeah. Just going to scroll back a little bit more. Ava Hermans is here. Good evening. Lauren was saying, really good to have a course 2.0 with more detail, especially on digestive and gut problems like intolerances and autoimmune diseases. So that's before we came on here, we were just talking about kind of the common threads for people who are interested in this aren't just those of us who've kind of read about it or think, oh, this is great, but maybe we've struggled with something in the past. That's why I asked Sam. And the things that got me interested in gut health was not really tolerating everything so well and trying to work out, what these things are, because it's a minefield. It's hard. And everyone's different. And, people quite easily just throw gluten as the problem or dairy or something. And, they want to blame that because it's the easy and marketable solution. But it is. So I think a lot of people who've done this course or, were interested in it might have had a tolerance issue or might be trying to play around with their gut health for something like an autoimmune condition. So if there's suggestions in that place, let us know. That's what we want to support you guys with.
And I think that was also something that came up a lot, was people had these problems, but it's so hard to give just general recommendation. That's why, like, for a course, you want to kind of make it basic, because then it can apply for everyone. But if you dive into one certain thing, it might not apply to so many people, and everyone, like you said, is so different. So what you don't tolerate, I might tolerate better, and what I don't tolerate, you don't. So it's so hard to always give out those like blanket recommendations. But if someone struggles, with certain things, it's always nice to like maybe go into that. So I think it will be so nice to do like another course where we go maybe a bit deeper into some, problems that people might have. And then, because I can imagine a lot of people struggle with, the same problems, but might just be different reasons even.
Exactly. You can have the same symptoms due to two completely different causes. So, and like Sam says, it's such an individualized response, because they can be same symptoms, but one of them is from this food and another one's from that. So it's digging into it, because there's going to be a solution. It's just finding out what it is. So we'll work on a follow-up. But that's also the value of something like having Sam in your corner as a coach, a specialist who can go through it with you, understand it, and say, hey guys, let's maybe look at this and that. We're busy working on an elimination program, which is often a starting point for it, kind of getting rid of all the common culprits and then reintroducing them back. But it's also, there's so much nonsense out there that you need to make sure you kind of do it the best way that you can. So reach out to Sam if you have questions about that specifically, because
no, for sure. And I mean, I'd love to help. And I see Dominic's asked, like, what brand of probiotics would I recommend? And there's so much on the market. There's, you can find anything you want. And that's what I did one of the sessions on. I'm not sure if you watched it, but I explained how you can choose a good probiotic. And I said you should look for 4 things. I can go through them if you want. I might just have to find it. But basically, it's making sure that your probiotic has more than 9 strains, and that it has more than 4 billion colony forming units. And then you must also just check the storage of it. So if it's in the fridge, it's more likely to be have a bit more beneficial bacteria in it. And then also the timing of it when you take it. So, using those things, you can often find you'll be able to differentiate between a good probiotic and maybe one that's not so good. But I mean, if you're in the shops and you need help, you can always send me a message of pictures, and we can always chat about it. And I can always help you there as well. But yeah, I mean, there'll be loads of good ones. There won't be one specific one that I would recommend.
Lauren's also got an interesting question here saying, is it essential to be on probiotics or prebiotics? And then her second question is, what helps with sleep? I assume related to the gut.
Okay, perfect. So that's also covered in that session. So if it's essential. So it's so person dependent. So I obviously know Lauren, she was one of my clients. So, but it's so different. It's so hard to say for someone if it is essential, because I always say, like, rather fix your diet and make sure that that's good before going to a supplement like a probiotic, because there's so much you can do with your diet and change to, get probiotics and prebiotics from that. So, I mean, I always say do that, focus on that first. And if that doesn't work, then you can try a probiotic. The things with probiotics as well, they can become super expensive. They're not always necessary. They're not always good quality. So, if your diet is not good, rather fix that first than just jump into a supplement, because, that's going to have a bigger impact and more beneficial in the long run as well, because, you can't just cover a bad diet with just a supplement. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I would kind of say. Yeah.
And anything that can impact sleep?
With the probiotic?
Or maybe a bit more general gut health.
Well, I think, I mean, you think about this one. I'm having a bit of a blank here, but I think in terms of just taking a probiotic, I mean, that would obviously help your gut, and your gut would definitely have impact on your sleep. So, I mean, it's definitely something to look into, because your gut plays a role in your hormones, which will affect your sleep as well. So, yeah, definitely something to look into. But, it's also, sleep can be affected by so many other things as well. So it wouldn't necessarily just be the gut, but it could be a number of different factors as well. I don't know if you have anything.
Most probably low-hanging fruits that would address first for sleep. So things like the environment that you're sleeping in, your exposure to blue light, caffeine, when you're exercising, maybe when you're eating more than sort of what you're eating. And then as you go down the chain of ticking off the things that are beneficial, eventually you might get to everything else is in place. Okay, great. What's going on with gut health as well? Because yes, it impacts hormones, and some of them do influence sleep. So we're learning more and more about it. But I don't think I'd start there if someone asked about sort of approaching sleep better from a nutritional point of view as well.
And the one thing I often see is caffeine. Like sometimes people drinking green tea in the afternoon, or, we all know coffee has caffeine, but sometimes like green tea and other teas have quite a bit of caffeine and we don't realize. And I always say, like, try not have it after 2, because it does affect your sleep. So, I mean, that's something to always look into. Or even if you're having foods that, could have stimulants in them as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Gavin says here, bread and cheese makes him seriously ill, and he has no idea why.
So, I mean, that's also something super dependent. I mean, person dependent, but it could be something in the food that you're reacting to. So you might, I don't know if you ever had intolerance tests done, but maybe that's something to look into. And yeah, I mean, ill as in like vomiting, or ill as in just bloated. Because I mean, if it's something that's making you ill as in vomiting, it's definitely something to look into. Yeah, for sure.
It's a good example of, and that's common. So, I mean, how many people have, come to you in practice or now as a coach and said, these 2 foods I can't eat. And the chances are someone said to them, you're gluten intolerant and you're lactose intolerant just because of those two foods. Now, they're a good example of how different things can be, because bread, it could be the protein in there, that's the gluten. It could be some of the carbohydrates that are in there and that are fermenting in the gut. And cheese in the same way with dairy, it could be the protein that you've got an allergy to, or the lactose, or it's the type of, it might be the yeast in the bread, so two foods, and we've quickly said there might be 5 different reasons that they're doing that to you. And everyone who might not tolerate bread or cheese could, there could be different reasons for each person. So it's
and
so
it is
hard.
a thing that we get, like gluten and lactose intolerant, because of that. So yeah, I mean, that's why I always say it's so person dependent, because one could be, maybe a bit slightly intolerant to this, where someone else, but it's the same food causing that intolerance.
And sometimes even just the certain brand, and I'll actually use my father as an example. Yeah. So if you get bread in a packet, can't stand it. Gives, bloats him and makes him feel terribly uncomfortable. But a freshly baked bread, totally fine. So there's something there from a preservative side that you start to question and say, maybe there's something going on there. So, and it might be a specific brand, and one you tolerate and the other you don't, because you don't actually know what's all in it and all the funny E numbers and additives and things. And maybe that's what you're actually intolerant to. So it is actually so hard to work out what the thing is at the end of the day.
No, for sure. And I mean, like you said, like everyone reacts so differently to everything. So I mean, that's what I always say, it's so person dependent. And if I have like no knowledge about what your diet's about, it's so hard to actually give recommendations because of those reasons.
Yeah. I think one of the places always to start is know what you're doing. So, we talk about it's assessment week and you got to, get your measurements and things in and log those. But if your journey is nutritional, you also need to know what you're doing. So part of the reason, we do logging of our foods, and, it's just the food pick. It's to give you an idea of almost a food diary in a visual form, to see what you're doing, so that if you want to improve it, or you want to go to someone else who's going to help you, or you want to come to someone for a coach, you don't know what to change until you've got a record of it. So, if tolerances are an issue, often the first place you're going to start is just tracking it. What am I actually doing? So you can see it. You can go to someone and ask them about it.
No, for sure. And I always say, like, especially on the weekends when I have my clients, sometimes they don't want to send photos on the weekend. I say that's the most important time to send it as well, because then you can actually track what's happening, and we can see what's happening. And especially if you have an intolerance, we can see if it's like a common food that you're having, if you're having after a certain food that you're getting this, pain or feel sick. So I think, for sure, that's super, super important.
Nancy says she can't tolerate long life milk, homogenized or UHT, but she can drink just regular pasteurized, which is interesting. And I wouldn't know why, because apart from them just being a different temperature that they've been treated to, what the difference would be. But it's people are like that. So maybe they're even things that we don't quite know about, and some people tolerate them and some don't. So it might change the protein structure a little bit or something. I don't know. But trial and error, like Gavin's got here as well in his many years around the sun, with his cheese issue, he's just stopped eating it. So unfortunately, there's also, the quackery out there of all sorts of tests and things to tell you what you don't tolerate. And most of them are a bit of rubbish. And it's unfortunately trial and error is the main way to kind of go about it. I don't know if you've got some feelings about that at all, Sam.
No, I was going to say the same. And I was going to say, like, we know our body is the best. Like, we know, like, I know when I eat something, how I feel. So you are your best, person when you eat something, to be like, okay, this actually doesn't go well with my body. And, everyone's different, and that's fine. We all have different hair, we have different color eyes, and we are different. So we are going to tolerate things different, and that's normal. It's not to say that it's not normal if you don't tolerate certain things. So I think it's, learning your body and what you can eat and what you can tolerate. And if you don't tolerate it, leave it out and rather don't have it, because there's so many different foods that you can still have other things that you enjoy. So rather don't have that thing that makes you feel ill and uncomfortable, because it's definitely not a pleasant feeling, for sure.
And out of interest, tolerances, can they be transient? Will there be times that you might be intolerant to something and other times that you not?
Yeah, for sure. Like, what do you mean over your lifetime?
Over your lifetime, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, that's also the whole thing. Like when you have, through your, like, even if when you're a kid, you have certain enzymes and they sometimes, if, so I know there was this one thing where people were not giving their kids, I think, milk for a certain stage, and then they lost, I think it was enzymes, and then they became intolerant to it. So, they always say like expose kids to different things because then, it's always really good because then, you don't lose the enzymes or the even your microbes that may help digest it. So you definitely can be intolerant, and even some people that are intolerant to dairy or lactose, they can sometimes still tolerate a small amount of it. So yeah, you can definitely, it doesn't mean to say you can't ever have it. You might be able to tolerate better as you get older, or sometimes as you're a kid you can tolerate things, and as you get older you get intolerances. So definitely does change through your lifetime.
Exactly, and the gut itself is such a malleable organ that it changes. So the times that you stressed and it's inflamed, or the integrity of your gut's impaired, and it might mean that you don't tolerate certain foods because you're more susceptible to them, and some of those things change. So we need to remember we're very different to other people, and we can be very different to ourselves from one day to the next as well. So
Yeah, I mean, our gut changes all the time, even from day to day. So, it's definitely just shows that it can change.
Exactly. Quite a few tolerance issues. So I think maybe that is something that we, comments that are coming in here, something that we dive a little bit deeper into. So it'd be great for anyone to reach out to Sam and let her know the parts of this course that really spoke to you, and maybe the areas that you want to know a little bit more about, and something we can develop for everyone for that. Nancy wants Angelina Jolie lips. She must eat kiwi fruit. Gives it a little tingling sensation. So there's something going on.
I remember once they brought out, I think it was snake venom that you could put on your lips so that they would do that. So I'm sure it was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, kiwi fruit's maybe a little bit safer.
I know, I think so too. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this. And yeah, please, like if anyone has questions, always you can reach out, or I would love to hear from anyone. Or if you want a course on a certain topic to go deeper, please, that would be so, so nice. But yeah, I hope everyone really enjoyed it and found it interesting.
Lovely. Sam, I know I did. It's always lovely to touch up on these sorts of things and things that you don't know about. Refresh the old memory and learn some new tricks for this old dog. So thank you very much. I enjoyed being part of it as well.
And thank you so much
by
as
the
well.
comments and feedback, I think everyone did. So well done. You poured a lot of love and passion into it, and I think we're all richer for that.
I'm glad. And thanks everyone for doing it. And I hope you enjoyed, and I hope, everyone learned something. It's always nice, like you said, to just keep learning as we get older.
Exactly. Brilliant, Sam. Thank you. And thanks for your time tonight as well. Have a good evening.
You
Go
too.
and enjoy 5 or 6 vegetables on your plate.
I will, for sure. They're in the oven, roasting away.
Beautiful.
But thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. And let me know if anyone has any more questions. We didn't cover any that we missed.
Lovely. Sam, thanks very much. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Bye.